Hey guys, thanks for tuning in to the next video. So I'm going to get this one out quickly. As you saw with the last video that we did, we created the terrain piece using TC2. Now I'm actually going to put that piece into a scene with our third-person controller, and we're going to use the Vegetation Studio to put all sorts of trees and whatnot on there. So the first thing I'm going to do is we're actually going to bring the terrain into the scene. As you can see, I've already imported the asset into my folders here, and we've got the prefab that we've already got set up. So if I drop those in, you can see they're going to just layer on top of each other, so we don't want that. We'll delete that. And then we'll bring up the terrain area here, and now we can see this was the terrain that we created earlier. Now if we just have a quick look, I'm just going to find my third-person shooter. Had him over here. I've imported this onto a scene I was already working on, so I'm just going to make sure he is up on top of the land. Probably a little bit too high now. There we go. And I'm just going to run that, just make sure that he can run around on the terrain. There's no problems. There we go. So this is what it looks like from the ground up. If you remember when we were using the reference model, yeah, it was pretty small. So now we can run around, and in the distance I've actually got the terrain. I've got the lighting stuff all set up on here, so I've got the global fog, that sort of thing, getting roughly 340 frames. That's pretty groovy, but we'll make note of that. So yeah, we're looking around 300 to 350 frames on an average. And now if we run through, okay, so we can see that there's a little bit of an issue here with the export of the terrain. So yeah, some of the markings don't line up. We can polish that up a little bit later on. We know what the different colours are for the terrain. We can just draw over it. That should be fine. At least we can see that the roads aren't too bad, or the pathways. Probably we want them to be a little bit tighter, but yeah, anyway, we'll see how we go with that. Alright, so now that we've got the terrain in the scene and we know that it's all working fine, we can start bringing in Vegetation Studio. It's actually really simple to use and pretty cool. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go Window, it will come out in Awesome Technologies, Multi-Terrain, add Vegetation Studio to the scene is what we want to do. So I'm going to bring that up, and when we come up to the inspector we can see Vegetation Systems here. So we've actually got the different terrains that we want to add to the system. So I'm going to actually leave that where it is, and we're going to, actually we can just do it from here. I'm going to click on this, add Vegetation System, done. And for each of these, going to add Vegetation System. Cool, so they're all on there now. We're going to go to this main one here, and I'm going to go Start Vegetation System. Actually, you know what, we don't need to do that. Yeah, they've all got it there, so we can delete that. We're going to keep this this overall one, because this one here actually can start all of the systems that are in the different terrains. But we're going to jump on this, Start Veggie System. Now as you can see here, you need to add a package. Now there's a default package that I've already loaded up with a whole bunch of stuff, but instead of trying to delete it all and do it again, I'm just going to make a new one. So I'm going to go to my assets folder, I'm going to create a new folder, and we're going to call it Veggie Pack, just so I know where those little bits and pieces are. And we're going to right click here, we're going to create Awesome Tech Vegetation Package, and we want it to have, I believe it was 8 textures. Yeah, pretty sure we had 8 textures. And we're going to call this Low Poly Pack. So this is already loaded up with a bunch of textures. That's silly because I obviously don't want that, but what we can do is we can choose a terrain. So we're going to Source Terrain, and yeah, just by dropping that on top of there, it has now replaced all of those textures with the ones that were built in on this terrain, which is why we did that in TC2. I wanted to have all of them there so it was easy to do. So yep, so now that's all set up, that's all good to go. So we're going to click on Veggie System. This one here is set for 0, 0, so that's good. Now we just need to drag Vegetation Package on top of there, and now that's loaded up all the details we want. We're going to do that for each of them. So we're going to start, actually we'll click on here, Start All Veggie Systems, and we need to do it here. Come to this one, oh, excuse me, drop it here, and then drop it here. Now, I had to put that on all there so that it knew exactly a package, no name, yeah cool, no name's fine. had to drop that on there for each of them so that each of the different veggie systems knows which pack it's drawing from. You can actually have multiple packs and then you can select which one you want here, so you can have a drop down menu with a few of them. This is good for if you have seasonal effects, so you can have one which is your summertime, one which is your wintertime, and that will change the textures, it will change the what trees you use, so you can have ones that switch over to a different thing, and you can do that at runtime. So you can actually have a seasonal system that will update the map constantly, and you can do that for each different one. So if you have a biome that's affected, say if I had a spell and I wanted to turn one section of terrain into a winter frozen area, I can do that with a spell by having it linked up, which is actually a cool idea. I'm going to remember that for future. Remind me of that if I don't remember it. Anyway, cool. So we're just going to come back to the first one. Now this is a veggie pack, so when we click on here to vegetation, and you need to go for the global settings and vegetation items. So here's all your global settings. So this actually changes this this system here, so it will actually make all the changes on each of the other ones there that are all interlinked, so they will all work fine. I don't have to individually set them all up and make them the same. So we're going to come through here, mesh resistance, so I'm just going to ignore all that for now. I'm going to take that off. So now what we can do is we can actually start putting everything from grass to plants, trees, and different objects on there. So we'll start doing that. We're going to go through, we're going to have a look at some of the artwork and pick which ones we want on there. So first off, what we're really going to want to do is grass. Now I'm going to use the grass from the adventure kit because that will match a lot of the different objects that I got. So we got all sorts of things from bushes and whatnot, but yeah, because I'm using the poly art stuff, using all the flowers and the grass will be good for this. So we're going to click here. We've got two different types of grass, so we're going to drop that in here, and we're going to drop that in here. So now we've got two. Now you can see that it's sort of littered all over the place with grass, and that's pretty cool, except obviously it's going over all these things. We haven't really dropped much in the way of frame rate, but let's just have a look. So that's a fair whack of grass, and that's mesh too, so let's run that and see what kind of frames we're looking at the moment. So yeah, so it's dropped down quite significantly actually, but if you can have a look, there's a lot of that grass all over the place. Because it is a mesh too, these ones aren't really built for the instancing shaders, but there are a few settings that you can do to fix that up so that it won't do it, and there's also a few other things that we'll do to minimize that. So let's go here, yep, and just start the veggie system. So we've got, yeah, grass, instance, LED. Wouldn't have thought that would actually do much in there. Anyway, runtime sawn, shadows, position, scale, rotation. We want to actually drop down the density of that grass too, so we're going to drop that to actually fairly low. And you can see there's still a lot of grass because we have that other grass model in there. So the reason it's not showing the icon image here is because these things just, I don't know what it is with Unity, but it doesn't seem to show them unless you've got a collider on them or you've dragged them into the scene and then saved them here. It just doesn't like rendering that. I'm sure there's actually an explanation for it. I don't know it, but it's crap. Anyway, so this is our second grass item. The density again is 1. We want to drop that all the way down to 77, and now you can see there's barely any grass there. But if we hit the play button, and again we're back up to about 300 frames on average. It's obviously a much more of a drop than, so it's about 60 odd frames that we've dropped from before, but we've got a fair whack of grass, and I mean 300 frames, you're not going to complain about that, of course. So yeah, let's get through some of the other stuff. So we'll come back here, we're going to start the veggie system again. So we've got a few of those. We might want to throw in some flowers. I'll drop them in the plant section. I'm going to go plant, and oh look, all sorts of roses. Actually that looks pretty cool like that, doesn't it? Cool. So we want to drop down the bunch, the instances of that. I'm going to drop the random distance down a bit as well, and we'll change the seed just for the fun of it. Sample distance. Yeah, randomise, scale, rotation's all fine. Gonna hit the play button, see what that kind of effect has. Yeah, it hasn't really had much impact, but of course these flowers are quite large, so we don't want those flowers to be like, you know, up to hip height and giant man-eating flowers. So let's drop them down. We're gonna have to start the veggie system. Going to click on the flower, which is already selected, that's great. And now we can change some of the values. So the scale, so minimum and maximum scale, so it's already increasing the scale of the items. We don't really want that. Put them down to that, and you can see now they're tiny little flowers. Tiny little flowers. Very good. Got to do that to the grass as well, because I've got a feeling the grass, yeah, a little bit high. So let's drop that down, and now you can see, yep, the grass is going down a fair bit. And we can have those ones, maybe. Oop. There you go. So some big grass, some little grass. Let's have a look at how that looks now. Yeah. Could probably boost up the density of it. I don't think it's a massive issue at the moment. Kind of happy with how that is. Does look a little bit iffy. There are some nicer grass pieces out there, but for now we're just going to stick with this. Oops. Press play. Alright, so I'm going to go back to the veggie system. Now, the next step that we want to do, we've obviously got grass that's spawning in on the dirt. We've got grass that's spawning in on the rocks and flowers, and it's going all over because we haven't actually set it up to say don't spawn on anything but the green. So what we want to do is we want to select, well, pretty much all of them we're going to do that for. So we're going to have flower, we're going to come down here to terrain texture rules, include texture rules. So you've got exclude and include. So exclude, if you want it on like most of the map, just not on one or two things, you want to use the exclude and add in that there. But we really only have one or two textures on here that we actually want the grass and the flowers to spawn on. So we're actually going to use include texture rules, which means that it will only go on these two. It's just the easier method rather than shutting off or excluding 6 textures. We only have to include 2 textures. So yeah, it depends on just whichever one you want. Alright, so texture 2 is grass, and we want to add another one. We want to go texture 3. So both of those are our grass textures. So now when we zoom in, we'll see that the flowers should only spawn on green grass texture. So there will be a little bit of bleed through, like I mentioned in the TC2 clip. There is a bit of bleed through because underneath this this roadway is actually the green and the dirt is just overlaid over the top. And it's the same with some of this too, so you might get a little bit of bleed, but it's actually usually pretty good. So we've done that for that. Now we're going to do that the same thing here. Include texture rules. We'll add 2 of them, texture 3 and texture 2. And now you see we'll start getting the grass only on there, and there's one more set of grass to set up. So do the same thing, include, add texture 2 and texture 3. And now you can see that that's removed it from a lot more of the dirt. And if we zoom in, there's actually quite little in there because of the spacing that we've set up. And also because there's the dirt underneath. When we come on here, good, it's no longer on there, but it is on the grass sections. Oops, excuse me. So now if we play it, let's have a look at what's happened. What's happened? Oh, running out of breath. Here we go. So yeah, now we can see that there's definitely, yeah, sort of definitive boundaries between the dirt and the grass, and a little bit of bleed through. But that's expected. Grass can grow in dirt. That's perfectly fine. Cool. So that's how you put on grass and little flower things. Now what we want to do is we want to add in some trees, because trees are pretty cool. So let's have a look at what kind of trees we've got looking. And if we've got bushes, we could probably set those up as well. Don't really want to, because I want to sort of put bushes in a singular place, or actually draw them on manually rather than have them just spawn through the procedural thing. But let's get the trees out of the way. So let's just have a quick look for some trees. And what are these plants? Little plants, they're pretty cool. Trees, here we go. So as I said, we got snow covered ones, so we can set up a second series of stuff for snow and change them over, and that'll be pretty cool. But for now we're just going to go with the regular ones. So we've got trees here, going to click on our veggie system, and now we're going to drop the trees into tree, and you see it'll come through here. It's going to generate the billboard, and as you can see it sort of takes up a lot of the space, which is cool. Now we've got to manually edit this one here. Density, we're going to drop that down again, so it's very few. The reason I'm dropping it down to a lot less than the other ones is because we're going to have several different types of trees, so rather than have one that appears constantly, we're going to have a bunch more, so it'll fill it out normally that way. Excuse me. Now when we come through here, we're going to do the same thing, texture rules, obviously, because we don't want it to, don't want it to end up where it shouldn't. Texture 3, and now it pops back up and it's only on the grass, which means that it won't be growing anywhere else, which is good. And there's a couple up there on the mountain in the green patches, but that makes sense, so that's fine. Alright, and now we want to drop in, we're going to drop in another tree, tree number 2. And again, yeah, we get that same problem with the density. We're going to drop that down. 1, 2, oops. Cool. Now we got those sitting there. And then we're going to go tree number 3. It's going to do, yep, all that again, no worries. Drop that down again. And 3, cool. There you can see we've got more trees coming up here. Now you'll see that, yeah, as we turn around and see there's the billboarding. With these ones here, they're not really built for billboarding. It won't matter too much to us in the game because we're going to have the fog on, so you won't be able to see it. But I have noticed that every now and then if the fog's set far enough, you'll see sort of a square in the fog and it might look like a building in the distance. You'll also notice that it's only spawning in on this terrain here. Now the reason, okay, so we've got them all over the beach, so we've obviously got a bit of the green blend there, and we don't really want to do that, so we might have a bit of a play around that. Actually, you know what if we use exclude, and we go that. So I believe that helps, so we're going to be able to polish that up by clicking on these. We're going to use an exclude, and this will prevent it from spawning on the sand, wherever there's sand. So because there's the bleed through, it knows that sand's there, so it's going to stop them spawning on the sand. Let's do this one. There we go, so now you can see we got that edge, and we've also got grass spawning on there, so we want to stop that, so we want to go to our grass, and our flowers, going to click that, add new item, yep, click on that, add new item, click there, add new item. And now that's cleaned up our sand. So now there's nothing going on the sand on the beach. We might put in some rocks, or if we get some sort of shells or something cool like that, we'll chuck it on there. But for now we're pretty good. Like that. So anyway, so as I was saying, yeah, it's only spawning on this square here, because at the moment that's the only veggie system we have active. So it can still appear on this, because remember we're editing the actual the veggie package, so it's for everything. But we're only actually putting it on this terrain while we're in the editor, so when we start up the game it will appear everywhere, everywhere the camera can see anyway. So now we've got that, where are we up to? Tree 4 I think was the next one, so excuse me, tree 4. Yep, so now it's generating the billboard again. We're going to drop that down. We're going to set up the texture rules. We also don't want it on that. Going to add it there, there, 2 and 3. And there you can see we've actually got a fair bit of trees going on, which is good because we want a lot of trees everywhere. We can actually set up things where we actually can stop drawing on too. So if I have too many trees in between this part, in fact what I'll do, I'm going to turn this one on as well. No, that was the wrong one, sorry. This one. So in our town we obviously don't want too many trees around the place, but I think that's actually pretty good for a little town. And as you can see, it's going to go up on the hills as well. Wherever there's green it's going to spawn some trees. Might look a little bit silly having some up there, but you know what, I don't care because it's green, so good for it. Cool. Alright, so we've done that now, don't worry about the wind zone, vegetation. Here we go, more. We've got a few more trees, so we're still going to keep dropping them in, just because I can, and I want that, you know, variety, and I want to try and push it to the limit. Now we want to do this again. 2 and 3. So there you go, so now it's going to spawn more of that. Maybe a little bit less of those. Yep, cool. That was tree 5, so we've actually got plenty of trees. Tree 6, again, density down. Doot, doot. I mean, you get the idea here. These are just some of the basic settings. There's a lot more you can do with these as well, but for now we're we're just sort of running through this part. So tree 8, or was it tree 7 I was up to? Yeah, it was tree 7 I was up to, but that's fine. Pop. Gotta drop down. I don't really want this tree popping up much at all. Definitely don't want it popping up on the sand. 2, 3. Cool. And of course it was tree 7. Don't want to leave him out. Alright, that's pretty cool. Do we have more trees? Oh god, we got, how many trees do they want to have here? 9. Oh, that's a good looking tree though, I want that in the system. I like that tree. We're starting to get a lot of trees, so I'm definitely on it. 0, I don't want 0, but that's fine. Drop it down a bit, exclude. What about 11? 11 looks pretty average, we'll leave him out. Ooh, 12's nice. And 13. Wait, what's the difference? Oh, okay, 12. So we definitely want number 12 in there, because it gives us some fancy looking tree. Woohoo. Again, drop that down. Scale can be a little bit bigger. And we want to do our include, exclude. Oh. Where's one of those trees? I want to look at it. I want to look at it. Show me the tree. Nice. Alright, that's enough for trees now, because I forgot there's one more thing that we've got to do with trees. And that's colliders. Yay! So collider type disabled, we want to actually have that. Can have it as a mesh. I'm going to use it as mesh because I want to, in my game I'm going to have projectile weapons and things like that, so I want to not have to worry about someone shooting through the top of the tree. If you were actually just going to use it for the nav mesh and not really worry so much about something walking through it or something shooting through it, then you want to put, maybe you've got a capsule that you can use. It's a little bit offset on these trees because it's a bit funny. You can put in a sphere. You can just change the X and Y value so it's there, so the nav mesh will know that there's something there and put it, so yeah, so you include your nav mesh bake, but of course I'm going to use it as a mesh because I want the trees themselves to actually have that. So we need to do that for each of the trees. I'm going to select mesh, mesh, mesh. It's also good for if you're going to have something like harvesting in your game, you want to have them with colliders. Mesh. Mesh. Did I even have any? Yeah, there you go, the last 3 are the plants in the grass. Cool. Obviously you don't want to put colliders on the grass or the flowers because you want to be able to run through those without any problem. One of the cool features that you can do with the grass, maybe not these meshes in particular, but some of the 2D grass, you can have the part where you can walk over it and you'll trample it and it'll stay trampled, which is really cool. There's a video of that online where that's working, so that's pretty groovy. Alright, so now we've got a bunch of trees. Let's see what kind of impact that's going to have. And we've obviously got a lot of them running around. They look pretty cool. It has obviously dropped a lot of our rendering down. I've got a feeling that I'm actually rendering a lot more than I should be at the one period. So I'm going to look at how that's done. Again, I think that's with that thing, those scales on the global settings. But I will have a look. For now though, that looks pretty populated. So as you can see, I'm still getting over like 160 frames, which is great. Kind of move through here. So a little bit of it up on the hills, so that's still a bit hilly. We got one or two up on the mountain. But I do like the look of that mountain from here, actually. It's kind of cool. Okay, so as you can see, there was a little bit of billboarding up in the hills there. We can look at, checking our draw distance, things like that for that. Ooh, light rays, hooray. Cool. Start Veggie System. Let's go to the global settings. Let's see what we can do. Vegetation distance 100. Additional mesh tree distance. I'm going to drop that down to maybe 250. Additional billboard tree distance. No, we want to drop that down. Let's bring that down to 1000. Grass density 1. Plant density, tree density, object vegetation scale, random seed. Let's pop that again. Yeah! Putting things in different places. So let's have a look at what that's doing. It doesn't seem to have too much of an impact, but at least we're getting, we're still getting a little bit of that billboarding happening. Yeah, a lot of it. But at least now when we run into a tree, it will have a collider. Pop. Nice. Pop. Pop. Hooray. Alright, cool, so that's that one there. Now we're going to add some of the other stuff that we can add to it. Let's change that. So in the objects, so we want to drop in, there's a couple of little rocks and things like that. I don't really want those rocks, I want actually the small rocks. Where have we got more of those? Oh, they had fancy pine trees. What was going on with that one? That was all bent up. That was a bit weird. Oh, dead trees as well. Different colour trees. Man, there's just so many trees. What is this? I didn't even notice these were here. That's crazy. Oh, and there's water. Ignore that for now. So let's have a look in, not in Polygon Adventure, but let's have a look in Dungeon, because there's a couple of good rocks in there. Environments, rocks. Nice. So we've actually got big rubble rocks. We don't really want those. Rock bricks, simple. Yeah, they're bricks, we don't want that. Flat rocks. Pebbles, pillars, rectangles, square, simple. Where was it? Rounded. Oh, these might be nice. So let's drop one of these on. I'm going to go to Vegetation System. We're going to large object. So those ones actually were quite big, I think. Let's have a little look. Yeah, I'd say that was large enough to consider it large. Delete that off. Let's go here. We're going to drop that into the large object. And as you can see now, yeah, it sort of spawned it all the way over there. Oops, excuse me. Why won't it let me? Okay. Alright, mate. Whatever you reckon. There we go. That's a little bit better. So, yeah, that's pretty cool. Obviously, we want to change that. So let's go Veggie System here. While we're at it, we'll set that to a mesh collider, because we're obviously going to be able to jump onto it and run into it, that sort of thing. Random distance. Ooh. Going to drop down the density as well. And then we want to do the include terrain, which will be texture 7. Yes. So we want it on the lighter coloured rocks. We don't really want it on the darker colour, because the darker colour doesn't really suit where we're going. And is that even... Oh, of course it won't spawn there because we don't have that one turned on. Where's my rocks? What have you done with my rocks? Alright, one sec. Oh, there's one. Nice. So we're we might turn the density up on that because I think it's having a little bit of trouble trying to play. Oh no, there's a few more. Still want to have that density up a little bit. So let's pop back up to here. Yeah, we've got our rock. Got our rock done. Let's up the intensity. Turn it up the heat. Yeah, cool. A little bit more rocks now. That's good. Alright. Now we want to go to, we've got a rock pile. We got rubble, don't want that. Pebble rubbles, marine square. Where were the good rocks that I had? I had some nice rounded rocks. Oh, here's what I want. So 4 and 3, 2 and 1. Cool. So let's go back here. We're going to draw up another. We're going to put these in the smaller objects because these are actually smaller objects, these rocks. So round rock 1, again, need to put it as a mesh. Could also do it maybe as a sphere. When we have a look, they are sort of spherical. I particularly like the mesh better, but again, it could have a bit more draw. We're going to drop that down dramatically, and we're actually going to let that spawn everywhere but the sand and the other stuff. Texture 8, so the dark rock stuff. So that will, oh actually you know what, we don't want it on the dirt either. We do, but in this particular instance we don't. Did I put that on the wrong one? 4. Oh, well, okay, cool. Good to know. Alright, so there'll be a couple of little rocks around. So now we've got a little bit of rocks in the scene, which is kind of cool. Just going to play that again, have a look at our impacts. Yep, not much difference there. Still running roughly around the same. So just for everyone's reference too, I am running a 1080 Ti, and I do have this set to, should be really fantastic, I think. I'll double check that later. Yeah, for now, so that's the kind of draw that I'm getting on 1080 Ti. So obviously lesser cards you'll start getting a lot lower, but I mean look, I've got 160 sitting up there, so I'm pretty sure even on the lower end cards you'll still be getting around 40 at least as a minimum, so it's pretty good on the drawing. Obviously I can't test that though, but here we go. So now, yeah, our sort of scenes are getting a lot more filled out. Because it is a low poly one, it's a lot different to some of the HT stuff you'll see, and all the high def vegetation stuff you'll see looks absolutely fantastic. I've got another video you can check out where I am using the higher definition stuff, and I'm using the base stuff that comes with the Veggie pack. So yeah, it's quite impressive what it can do. Anyway, I'll jump back out. So start this back up again. Alright, so now we've got rocks, we've got all sorts of bits and pieces, we've got our colliders. Let's have a look at baking the nav mesh with the colliders on there. Hopefully this doesn't take too long, it should only be 4 things. If we bake... Did that not work? What just happened? Oh. What are you doing, mate? It doesn't want to bake a nav mesh. What's going on there? Oh, okay. They weren't set to static. My bad. 1, 2, 3, 4. Navigation static. No, it's object only because they're the only ones. Now we can go to bake, and it should bake. Doesn't take long to do 1. Takes quite a while to do 8. Or 16 should I say. Hopefully doing 4 doesn't take too long at all, and then I can show you how it actually includes these on the nav mesh, so it will yeah, make it so that our AI can't run around. Oh, sorry, can't run straight through the trees. Oh, there we go. So it's popped up. Sorry, I was just cleaning my glasses. So yeah, that actually took maybe about 2-3 minutes. But as you can see, when we zoom in, it should have had those as colliders on the nav mesh. Has that not done that? What's going on there? Interesting. meshes, yep, including nav mesh, that's fine. Nav mesh obstacle. Oh, dear. Alright, so yeah, that was my bad. You do need to also select nav mesh obstacle. So you want to put a box. If we have a look, oh, this is a rock pile. No, alright, capsule. So where do we have rock pile? There we go, so there's one here. Can we set that to, yeah, just a box will do. So we're just going to put that as a box for that one. We do have to do that for the other ones as well. Now this is a round rock, so we can probably have a little capsule for that. Yeah, doesn't need to be two, we're just going to put that as one. Cool. Same with this one, this one's going to be a tree, we need to put that as a box. If we can find what tree this is. It's got to be one of them. There he is. Alright, so you can see, yeah, slightly off, so you'd want to adjust that. Now you'd probably do this all actually at the one time, so you wouldn't, like I'm doing here where I'm having to go back through and then find them. Each time you put in a new one of these things, you should set up everything on it correctly. So just remember that for when you guys go to do it. It might help. Yep, so again this way we don't miss these little things. 3, 4, I want to put a box. Box. And of course we don't need it for the flower or the grass because that's fine. So we're going to go back to navigation and we're going to bake again. So stand by again, and it should only take about 2 minutes. That's what I timed it at before anyway. That is... How come that happened? It's just automatically thrown it in there, and maybe because of the auto thing? I'm not sure how that happens. Anyway, we will wait for it to finish. Okay, and we're back, and now you can see when we get close enough to these things, we can see now the splits in the nav mesh. So that's all well and good, so that's all nice and defined. Alright, so we're just going to hit play again now, and we'll just have a look at how we go. Woo, all sorts of things going on here, isn't that fantastical? So yeah, so this is our setting up of the thing. So after this I'll do another video where we'll have Emerald AI, and that's why I need the nav mesh, because that'll be using the nav mesh for the NPCs that come through. Yeah, again, thanks for watching. There is a lot of stuff that I've sort of left out on this, so you can do a lot more tweaking to get, again, so I don't lose quite so much in the frame rate. But yeah, it all depends on what vegetation stuff you're using. Some things require certain shaders to be compatible, that sort of thing, so a lot of the speed tree and a lot of the other more higher def stuff will work because I'm using these sorts of solid meshes. They're basically just chucking in a whole bunch of models, so it's a little bit different, but as you can see it's still pretty good going, and a lot better than Unity's built-in terrain thing, so it's definitely a winner. I'm going to be using it for the main project that I'm on. Obviously take a look at the asset yourself and yeah, decide whether it's going to save you a bit of effort on your own projects, and whether it's right for you before you make your purchase. I certainly recommend it because it is a good tool, and it's got a lot of integrations that are coming up with a lot of the world building tools that are out there, and again it's one of the great ways of throwing in a lot of stuff but not having too much of the performance hit. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.